great pleasure to introduce Nuni Kulu, who is the President of the Business Council of Papua New Guinea. I mentioned her, she's an outstanding leader in the commercial world, works with the BSP, but today she's wearing her hat, as I said, as the President of the Business Council. She's going to talk to us about the multiplier effect of resource projects, their broader contribution to Papua New Guinea, and why this is an important part of the conversation we're having today. Thank you, Nunu.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you, Richard. Let me first take this opportunity to thank the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum for maintaining ongoing dialogue this year, right throughout this year, on pertinent business issues, and not only for their sector, but also for the private sector as a whole. So especially today, for this webinar, we discuss impacts of PNG LNG and moving together as one team. My contribution today will discuss how PNG LNG has reshaped the private sector, and I will focus on three areas. Firstly, three ventures that have a direct result of this FDI, the growth of the middle class, and how the Business Council is positioning activities to foster similar impacts. So three ventures that are direct result of the PNG LNG FDI. Firstly, Edai Town, a model community estate. With the ever-increasing demand of affordable housing to the growing working class, the people of Boira village, one of the impact communities near the LNG plant site, undertook an ambitious project to build a modern township. With the support of various direct and indirect proceeds from PNG LNG Partners, this dream became reality in 2014. 5 years later, 400 residents, 200 homes, uninterruptible electricity and water supply, a privileged residence in Port Moresby and definitely other centres will envy, and completely secured, Edai is rapidly becoming a modern township. Secondly, on the TransWonderland Limited, who's currently providing logistical solutions to one of the toughest terrains in the world. What started off as a small trucking company, TWL Group, has grown into a major logistical company that will also expand soon to sea and air transport. Similar to Edai Town, partners of the PNG LNG supported TWL as there were major supply chain systems that were required. Perhaps the exciting development of this venture is TWL Data Limited, whereby service entails extensive data management in GIS and project solutions. They have clients in New Caledonia, Palau, American Samoa and Brunei. Employing thousands of Papua New Guineans and expanding beyond the PNG LNG project, TWL is poised to expand regionally as well. And thirdly, the Corba Agro Industrial Centre, which is experiencing or has promoted the rebirth of agri-businesses. Recognizing the supply of food was critical for the project, visionary Governor of Hela, Anderson Agiru, had championed a venture developing an agro-industrial centre in Corba. Partnering with the innovative Agro Industry Limited, this project set out to replace imports, provide food security and bring high-tech solutions. Today they produce 149 million metric tons of vegetables, 73 million tons of fruits, 3.25 million eggs, and 1 million tons of chicken meat. This project has single-handedly supplied all of the highlands with eggs and chicken, as well as hundreds of farmers supplying feed and other outgrowing crops. The paradigm of business systems can be observed from these three ventures. PNG Partners, firstly, PNG Partners were identified with the skill, leadership, and determination to deliver complex and at times unique PNG-centric problems such as land tenure, cultural practices, and mobilizing and inspiring local participation. So from the impressive Edai Town chairs of Se Moyave and Ulato Ave, TWL Chair Larry Undergully, and visionary Hela, Governor Anderson Agiro. Secondly, PNG LNG Partners commitment. Investing in ventures that were not only linked to the projects but have long-term impact. Each of these ventures are regenerating in other sectors, and it is a testament of how local content works when meritocracy and sound business case is established. And thirdly, the multiplier effect. Each of these ventures also attracted other institutions to capitalize on their expansions. Bank of South Pacific Ltd had partnered with Edai Town on rolling out the government's housing scheme, which has seen over 1,000 first home buyers. The innovative Agro Industry Limited has, since the Corba project, expanded in 10 provinces, 12 projects, which includes the only dairy farm and cocoa facility. There are literally millions of people benefiting from these and many other initiatives, and it is clear they have emanated from the PNG LNG investment. Second part of my observation for this afternoon is the growth of the middle class. During the construction phase of the PNG LNG, as many of you would know, growth rate was tracking double digits. While there was correct assessment on the impact of Dutch disease, there was also growth and expansion in non-project related sectors, which included property, retail services, agriculture, tourism, and the ICT sector. It is important to highlight that these sectors were largely driven by the middle class. Even in recent times, prior to the COVID-19, the numbers of superannuation contributors were growing from various sectors, and the uptake of personal loans, housing loans, and other items were on an upward trajectory. While large corporate lending was flat, SME lending was on a gradual upward trend as well. What is important to note is positive trends occurred despite the 2014 downward trend of sales performance of businesses related to the end of the PNG LNG construction phase. So the PNG Middle Class, like its counterparts around the world, are the real engine room of growth, as they are not only consumers but big investors as well. So having adjusted in 2014 and further this year, they are still resilient in pursuing growth. No doubt when projects kick off in the coming years, we will certainly see them coming again in full force and spend and consume in PNG. And I do want to add here, there is a true upward trajectory in wealth creation for the workforce. The growth of the middle class wealth and the distribution of financial benefits is in turn stimulating national productivity. We are seeing personal loan portfolios grow year on year, currently at the tune of over 950 million. We're seeing housing loan over the 645 million, and SME lending has reached over 60 million, and which is an exponential growth in the recent 2 years, particularly for SME. The workforce associated in one way or another with this FDI have no doubt gone into entrepreneurship across various sectors. And from a financial industry perspective, we have seen increasing demand for financial services. And in response, the expansion of banks' footprints beyond urban centres and townships into provincial districts over the past 10 years. And certainly similar expansion for other customer-centric industries like the telcos especially. The ripple effect on to an individual Papua New Guinean can be seen around, particularly on housing loans and the government's first home ownership scheme. We're seeing younger millennials and I think your early part of your generation Y start to create their own personal wealth, either on their own remuneration or in joint borrowing with family members. And this is the type of organic socio-economic development happening today. So after all, much of the 3 projects I mentioned earlier were driven by this class of Papua New Guineans, and therefore the government and equally the market should provide incentives to incubate similar ventures. How is the Business Council positioning activities to foster similar impacts? So I'd like to end my discussion by briefly highlighting The Business Council Papua New Guinea's drive in advocating for similar PNG LNG impacts in the market. In preparation for the incoming 2017 government, after national general elections, we conducted a series of consultations with 20 business associations representing 10,000 businesses to highlight key areas businesses and governments must collaborate to develop the country. So all made the general assessment that PNG LNG type FDIs were essential ingredients to our growth, and further highlighted key emphasis in the following areas was essential for growth: affordable data prices, reliable power supply, businesses to implement SDGs, improve the ease of doing business ranking, broaden the industry base by investing in agriculture, innovation and creative industry, and build a productive workforce. We have 9 working groups with 11 projects in driving outcomes of these issues with our government partners. What is comforting is the collaboration and urgency we see with several of our government partners, and they are fully aware of the need to bring new money, so to speak, and to build a conducive environment to trade in the non-resource sectors. Equally, businesses have tirelessly adjusted to operate in the current market conditions, although on survival mode. So in conclusion, it's still not clear enough. Our backbone remains in the resource sectors. And while positive announcements have been made in recent times, the market, and in particular the enthusiastic middle class, is wanting and waiting to rebuild, rescue and unleash their projects they have delayed for several years. The key message is the urgency to fire up these projects so we can replicate and better the ventures of Edai, TWL and Corba as soon as possible, so millions of our people can walk confidently in the middle class and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nuni. Thank you. And appreciate that message. But firstly, I'll just acknowledge the late Anderson Agro for his vision, and accompanied currently by Samoyave and his vision. Political leaders of our country that have shown that with their vision, they've added steadfast commitment to action. They've got involved and engaged, and what we've seen in your presentation, Nuni, has shown the result of that. Action is so important. Secondly, I appreciate the closing your presentation focusing on our younger people, the future generation of Papua New Guineans. And it's clear that we need the foreign direct investment through our development of our extractives. This provides the impetus for that wider development that you talked about. And your presentation was quite self-evident.